Greetings to those of you who are listening and viewing from around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, and welcome to My Journey with Paula G, where we are juggling this journey called life while we're walking in the gifts and talents that God has given us. I am so overjoyed that you have joined us. And if this is your first time, welcome to the journey. Thank you so much for tuning in or listening. And if you are a returning visitor or viewer, thank you so much for continuing to embrace this journey. I say each and every episode, and some of you by now can say it with me. Time is precious. It is the one thing that you cannot get back. So for you to think it not robbery to spend this time with us is truly, truly appreciated. We thank you so very much. We also would like to thank those who have embraced the journey through their underwriting support. Our underwriters. We could not do what it is that we do without our underwriters. So we thank them so much for their continued support and providing a means for which we can have this platform to bring you quality programming. Now, if you have a business, you have a product, you have a service that you'd like to gain more exposure, reach out to us at jerryvoicelive@gmail.com or Paula at paulagvoice.com. Put in the subject line underwriting opportunities, and we will be sure to follow up with you on that. So we thank you so very much for that consideration. Also, I encourage you to reach out to stay connected with me through all social media platforms, as well as my website. It's very easy, Paula G Voice. PaulaGvoice.com is the website. Facebook, YouTube, I almost couldn't think. Facebook, YouTube, IG, Paula G Voice. Reach out and embrace the journey. My website has all aspects of Paula G Voice, Lady Wisdom, my blogs, and my book, the courses, inspirational, motivational information. So I just encourage you to reach out. And also, if you've missed some past episodes, you can go to the television page and click on the weekend channel and view some of the past episodes. We are now airing on a variety of platforms, and we're so incredibly grateful and blessed and fortunate to have the opportunities that we have as well. Well, I want to talk to you today a little bit about finding your GPS, finding the zip code where knowledge resides. And this is an excerpt from my upcoming book in which I've compiled all of my Paula's perspectives, Lady Wisdom, my blog posts, because a lot of you have said that they have encouraged you and you've gained something from them. So I'm compiling them and I'm putting them all into a book. So that is a work in progress as I continue to juggle this journey called life while walking in the gifts and talents that God has given me as well. So I want to read an excerpt from my current book that's a work in progress. And again, this is entitled Finding the Zip Code Where Wisdom Resides. Some of you may have heard me say before that there are two things that I pray for on a daily basis: wisdom and discernment. Neither one is easily obtained, but both require knowledge of oneself, knowledge of the immediate environment, circumstances, and climate of the culture, knowledge of worldwide circumstances. It requires knowledge of past circumstances, climate, the past circumstances, the climate and culture, both locally and worldwide. Wisdom and discernment require a lot. And I've been blessed to live in countries other than the one I was born in. Now, don't get it twisted. I am a proud American citizen, love being American, love my country. But living abroad has shaped much of my perspective on the world that we live in. The world is so much bigger than our zip codes, yet we often view the world from within the confines of our zip code, the zip codes of our minds, and what we have either been taught or exposed to. They all shape our perspectives. And this really began to resonate with me as I began to travel, not only outside of the US, but to other states, to other parts of the US. Living in one place for an extended period of time, our worlds are shaped by that particular environment. The beliefs, what's important, the priorities, the values, the philosophies, all of those things are shaped within us from that environment that we reside in. And it's not until we venture outside of that environment that we discover new ways of thinking, other perspectives, other beliefs, other priorities, other things that are important to other people. And that tends to go one of two ways. Either when you have those perspectives, you embrace them and it opens your mind to different experiences, different values, rethinking some things, changing your perspective, expanding your mindset through worldwide conversations. Y'all have heard me say that before. Or it causes one to retreat even more because they're afraid of change. They're afraid of something that looks different or sounds different or believes differently than they do. And we in this day and age, and at the time of this particular recording, we're going through so much turmoil, not only in our own country, but around the world, because we're refusing to listen to each other. We're refusing to open our minds to other ways of thinking or other ways of believing. It's like you've heard that whole tunnel vision thing, where we just see things one way or we just believe in things one way and we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to gain insight on other beliefs or other cultures. I can recall, and some of you may be able to relate to this. You remember when you were in school and we had history lessons or geography lessons, and we learned about certain events, or we learned about certain places, or we learned about certain people. And my earliest recollection was remembering studying in history classes about the Statue of Liberty and seeing the Statue of Liberty and the history behind the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, how people arrived at Ellis Island, how they processed through and then dispersed throughout the Americas. So, I grew up for a number of years having a certain perspective of this huge monumental, which it is a monument, this huge monumental statue and what it stood for. It wasn't until years later when I actually had the opportunity to visit, and I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was in Paris, had the opportunity to visit Paris, where, according to the historians and the information that was there, housed the original Statue of Liberty, which was nowhere near the size of the one that is in New York. Now, at the time, we were on this tour, and the docent said that that was the original Statue of Liberty. It was beautiful. It was not terribly large, maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 feet. It really wasn't that large compared to the one that sits on Ellis Island in New York. And so the docent said that that was the original, and that the one that was given to us by France was a gift, and that it was modeled after the artist's mother-in-law. I don't know how true that was, but that was why he sent it to New York. I don't know how true that was. But the point being is, up until that point, my perspective of the Statue of Liberty was this monument that was larger than life, that people could walk up into this monument. You could walk up into the torch, and it was just huge, and it just represented so much to us as Americans. And as I'm there and I'm looking at what was we believe to be the original Statue of Liberty, it was a beautiful monument, but it wasn't as large. And the area that it was housed, I can't quite remember exactly the area. It seemed like it was sort of like a park kind of area, but don't hold me to that. But my perspective changed. It wasn't negative, it wasn't disappointed. It was just a different perspective, having seen this original piece, some of the artwork, the Mona Lisa, and some of the artwork, seeing the work of Michelangelo. You know, you see it in the history books, and you develop this certain perspective or certain vision. And it's not until you actually see these things in person. In some instances, they're not as large or small as we have perceived them to be. The experience also speaks to certain people and certain cultures. Being in this particular country, having been exposed to information, I'm kind of trying to be general without being specific. Excuse me. Excuse me. Being exposed to information about a certain culture or certain people, and the positives or the negatives about them, in some instances more negatives than positives, how they behave, what they like, what they eat, what they don't eat, you know, how they treat their children, how they treat their women, how they treat them, all these different things. Your opinion is shaped, your belief about a certain culture is shaped based on those things that you're told or those things that we've read. It wasn't until I had the opportunity to visit certain countries and actually engage with this culture of people that I've learned about in books or I've been told about, to really witness for myself that some of those things that we learned, some of those things that we were taught, were not necessarily true or indicative of the entire culture. There may have been certain segments or certain people that fit those stereotypes, shall we say, but it was not representative of the entire culture, the entire people, the entire uh, philosophies and beliefs. It only represented either a small portion of that culture, or in some instances, not at all. And it really got me to thinking about how we form our perspectives, how we form our opinions. Were some of those opinions or some of those that information we received about a certain culture based on that person or person's experience with one individual, in which they attached that individual's behavior, they attached that individual's behavior to the entire culture? Was it what we've learned and what we have been raised to believe, shall we say, based on personal opinion, personal experiences that may have been a bit biased? It got me to thinking about all of these things. And all of us within this country, depending on what culture we're a part of or what race we're a part of, there are stereotypes that are attached to all of us. Stereotypes that can be aggravating at times, can be annoying at times, that can anger us at times. You know, that the people react and respond to us based on these stereotypes that a lot of times are not true. And it got me to thinking, putting the shoe on the other foot, so to speak, in regard to reshaping and rethinking how I look at other people, how I look at other cultures, what I believe about them. And I've gotten to the point in my life where, even though we have, you know, history books, and we have scholars, and we have those who have studied a certain culture or belief or religion or what have you, that the information that we receive, we need to filter through our own experiences, giving ourselves opportunity to engage in some of those experiences, engage with some of those cultures and some of those peoples, where we can see some of these things for ourselves and learn some of these things for ourselves, and thereby gaining perhaps a more accurate perspective, a more accurate view of a person or persons. And I believe that a lot of our polarization is within some of us, our inability to see beyond these binders, or the willingness to see beyond these blinders. And it really has opened my mindset, and there's some lessons that I've learned. And as I move forward in the next phase of my journey, I want to look at experiences, and I want to encourage you too to look at the experiences that you have in life. Extract from those experiences the lessons that you've learned. So, the lessons that I've learned, well, before I go there, let me just give another example. I recall teaching some GED classes for maybe about 3 or 4 years. I taught to students who had been in some legal trouble, shall we say, and they were strongly encouraged to further their education to finish accomplishing their high school diploma through a GED program so that they could go on either to college or to some form of employment so that they could become productive citizens. And in conversations with some of those students, we were talking about some colleges and colleges that they might consider. And I mentioned a few colleges that were literally like the next two exits up the highway. It was like the next two exits. Some of the students asked, the colleges that I mentioned, they asked if those colleges were actually in our state. Some of the students asked, where are they? And I'm like, they're like 5, 10 minutes up the road, if that far. Had never been there, had never been that far. During my career as an educator, I learned there were students and adults that had never literally been outside their zip code. For those of you who live in America, the zip code designates the area or district that you live in. And in some other parts of the world where I traveled, zip code, I think, looks a little differently, maybe a zone or a district or area, something of that nature. But they had never been outside of their zip code. And if the zip code is a 2 or 3 mile radius, let's say, or 4 or 5 kilometers, they had never been outside of that and did not know what the world looked like outside of that. Imagine growing up not having gained experiences beyond 4 or 5 miles or 4 or 5 kilometers. There's a whole big world out there, and we've got to, I always say expanding the mindset through worldwide conversations. We have to begin to expand our mindset. And hopefully, through expanding our mindset, we're able to engage more with people who don't look like us, who don't sound like us, who don't have the same beliefs that we do, or you or I do. Our beliefs may be different. We won't have those experiences where we can expand and engage in conversation and come together as brothers and sisters in the body of Christ, and brothers and sisters as human beings. So some of the lessons that I've learned is, as I've mentioned, the world is so much bigger than our zip codes. We often define our world based on our limited zip code mentality. Think about that for a minute. Your limited zip code mentality. We have to expand our mindset in order to break stereotypes, myths, etc., and see things as they are, not as we perceive them to be, or someone told us that they were, or standing firm, using stereotypes as a foundation. We've got to see things as they are. So, in some suggestions that I have: read, travel, open your mindset. And I know some of us now, we're in such an instant society. We have, audiobooks. You don't have to actually sit down and read a book. But I encourage you to read about different peoples, read about different cultures, have conversations with people from different cultures, different regions, different areas, different countries, different backgrounds. They say reading is fundamental, and some reading is good. Not all reading is good, but some reading is good. But I encourage you to read, to educate yourself, to research, to find some individuals from these other cultures or these other beliefs and have engaging conversations and allow yourself to sit with an open mind to listen, even though it may not fall in line with what you believed or your norm, but allow yourself the opportunity to listen. God gave us two ears and one mouth. Some of us have heard that before. Two ears and one mouth for a reason. We've got to open our ears and listen to expand our mindset. Travel, if you have the opportunity, and I know some people are like, I'm not getting on a plane, I'm not getting on a train, what have you. You can drive. I'm not getting on a ship. I'm not getting on a boat. I'm not going to those people. I've heard that those people are, you can fill in the blank. I would encourage you to, even if it's outside your state, that's a start. Not necessarily traveling to another country, although that would be wonderful if you had the opportunity, but just maybe traveling to a different state. If you're from the South, travel to the North. If you're from the North, travel to the South. If you're from the West, travel to the East. If you're from the East, travel to the West. And if you're in the middle, north, mid south, mid east, midwest, flip a coin and choose a direction and go in. Find a spot that you can go and spend a few days and learn about that community, learn about that area, learn about that culture, learn why a people believe the way they believe. At the end of the day, you still may not necessarily agree with them, but perhaps you will have a better insight as to why they believe the way they believe or behave the way that they behave or do some of the things that they do. We have got to open our mindset, ladies and gentlemen. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ. We are all human beings occupying this earth. And one of the things, among many things, but one of the things that I have found in my traveling and living in other places, that there's one thing that I have found that's common across the board. I don't care if I'm in the United States or in Europe, or I've traveled to Africa and the different countries in Africa, the different countries in Europe. When you sit and you get to know people and you engage with people, the bottom line, regardless of what language we speak, we all seek the same thing: good quality of life, a home for our family, food, clothing, shelter, water, uh, education for our children, a good job or a career or business where we can support ourselves. In most instances, of faith, a faith in a higher being. These things I find to be basic across the board. It looks different. Yes, it looks different. I've engaged and I've had conversations with individuals who are of another faith. But after, having conversations with them about their faith and them sharing their faith, oh, I am so much more convinced that regardless of what we call God, how we study God, at the end of the day, we believe in the same God. Some of these religions where we're so polarized and we don't believe that we believe in the same God, we believe in the same God. It looks different, but we believe in the same God. At the end of this day, we have that faith. We're a prayerful people. So I encourage you to expand your mindset. Y'all hear me say it all the time. Expand your mindset through worldwide conversations. Allow yourself to be open to things that don't look the way you think they should look, or things that don't sound the way that you think they should sound. Expand your mindset through worldwide conversations. Expand your mindset through reading documentaries. And yeah, sometimes we got to check the facts on things. I get it. But when we expand our mindset, when we embrace our brothers and sisters of other cultures or other faiths or other languages, for me, it has been such a blessing to open and expand because for me, it helps me to see just how it helps me to see that much more how much God touches people from around the world in different ways. He speaks to them in different ways, but he touches them in different ways from around the world. So I encourage you to expand your mindset. Find the zip code where wisdom resides. Wisdom resides in knowledge and expanding your mindset. Find a way to expand your mindset. Open your mind, open your heart, open your spirit, and embrace the journey. I hope that helps somebody today. And speaking of journeys, we have come to the end of our journey today. And I thank you all so much for joining me. And I hope you've gained something from this today and that you will take it with you as you begin to move forward. Thank you to our underwriters. Without our underwriters, we would not have this platform upon which we can bring this programming. So we thank you all so much for joining us. And remember, stay connected. PaulaGVoice.com is my website. Paula G Voice across all social media platforms. My journey with Paula G is streaming across a variety of platforms as well. So we're incredibly grateful. A shout out to our producer, Jerry Voice Live at Positive Power 21, thanking him for the vision of my journey with Paula G. And until next time, remember that the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one that takes place in between your ears. What are you speaking to yourself? Is God a part of that conversation? And are you listening to his still small voice? Until next time, embrace the journey.